Hey everyone, welcome back to the 443 Security Simplified. I'm your host, Mark Liberty, and joining me today is
Corey, bah humbug the holiday hackers. Not Griner.
Man, I feel that one. Man, and right before Corey heads off for vacation, we've got quite the episode today. We'll start with a rundown of just a deluge of attacks against edge networking equipment, including an update on the recently patched WatchGuard Firebox vulnerability. After that, we'll discuss Ghost Pepper, the latest campaign.
You're doing another Hot Ones episode with me. I've always wanted to do Ghost Peppers live with you. We need to eat a raw one.
Unfortunately not.
That's what's happening, right?
It's a Firefox extension. Sorry.
More holiday bah humbug. Thanks a lot.
And then we will end with another report on a different extension that is stealing all of your data. With that, let's go ahead and, VPN our way in. And it's been a big 2 weeks in the news for attacks and vulnerabilities involving specifically edge networking equipment and network connected systems. And we'll discuss the Firebox IKD 0 day in just a bit. But I want to start by discussing this wider issue that we've been tracking for the last couple of weeks. And it kind of, if I had to put a starting point on it, and man, I feel like the real starting point is probably 8 years ago. But if I had to put a recent starting point on this, it would be December 9th, when Fortinet patched 2 critical vulnerabilities in their FortiCloud single sign-on login feature for all of their services: FortiOS, FortiWeb, FortiProxy, FortiSwitch Manager. Pausing again, I really feel like we should update our naming convention to just make it easy and call everything the watch something.
Forti everything.
Yeah. But anyways.
or I'm sorry, watch everything.
If you're not familiar, or if you haven't used this feature, FortiCloud single sign-on, it's disabled by default until the admin of the device registers it for FortiCare, which even their support has a name like that, I guess, through the management GUI, at which point it is automatically enabled. They additionally patched a couple other issues. There was a password change vulnerability that let attackers reset the credentials of already compromised accounts without needing the old password. There was a vulnerability that let attackers authenticate using a password hash instead of the password. But these 2 vulnerabilities relating to the single sign-on were the big one. Because on October 15th, so less than a week afterwards, Arctic Wolf published a report about seeing exploit activity targeting these single sign-on vulnerabilities being under attack from as early as December 12th. So just 3 days after the patch. So it was patch disclosed, 3 days later, under active exploitation, and then Arctic Wolf's report comes out a couple days after that. They walked through just a few of the details where after exploiting the vulnerabilities, the attacker gains a super admin user account on it. And in most of their cases, they saw them then go scrape the configuration files off the devices and exfiltrate them off. And in the report, they provided a handful of attacker IPs as indicators of attack or indicators of compromise. And those will be a little bit important a bit later in this discussion too. But that was just like the first one. Then on last Monday, so about a week ago, if you're listening to this episode when it came out, AWS's threat research team published a blog post describing a campaign from Sandworm, which is the hacking group associated with Russia's main intelligence directorate, or the GRU, spanning from 2021 through current times. And their timeline starts in the very end of 2021, which is around the same time that we started investigating what ended up becoming Cyclops Blink, which was at the time the latest evolution of the VPN filter malware that Sandworm had been using for several years prior to then too. AWS described the period from late 2021 through 2022 where Sandworm was actively targeting Firebox appliances as a part of their campaign. So if you remember back then, we helped dismantle the Cyclops Blink botnet during that time. But there was additional activity too, where they were seeing information grabbing, basically going and harvesting configuration files off of exposed and vulnerable devices. AWS continues the timeline. They talked about how they pivoted in 2022 to start using Python to encrypt originally they were using Python to encrypt the config files and pull them off. Then in 2022, they switched to exploiting vulnerabilities in exposed Confluence servers from Atlassian, exploiting two pretty big vulnerabilities at the time and going after misconfigured and exposed services on them, both to steal information and to use as proxies for other attacks. Then in 2024, they pivoted to Veeam backup systems, again, going after misconfigured and exposed devices and exploiting a vulnerability to steal information and use them as proxy devices. And then finally this year, they just noted even more sustained targeting of just misconfigured services and network devices, and even a bit of a step away from zero-day and recently exposed vulnerabilities too.
But although that seems to be changing lately with even the Fortinet thing we talked about, and probably more to come.
Yeah, well, at least this is specifically Sandworm. The other ones don't have attribution yet for it, but Sandworm has been backing away from exploiting zero-day vulnerabilities and just going after people that expose services. Like they mentioned using like credential harvesting techniques and then password spraying and credential stuffing against devices to just gain access.
In our Honeynet, right? I mean, for a period of time, some brute forcing and was it spraying? They didn't have passwords, so it was one of the two.
Yeah, at our peak a couple of months ago, we were seeing 3 million authentication attempts per day against our Honeynet. So a collection of firewalls around the world that are intentionally exposed. So huge amounts of authentication brute forcing going on against exposed services. And it makes sense. Like a lot of these systems are designed to be at least partially on the exposed to the internet, like think remote access services. Definitely not the management interface. You should never expose the management interface for any of these to the internet. And that seems to be what they're going after the most in this case. And in fact, like Amazon gave some good guidance here about like how to defend against some of this. One of them is, first off, reviewing exposed management interfaces, but then using network segmentation to isolate them, even on like out-of-band management networks. They recommend reviewing authentication logs for credential reuse from like unexpected geographic locations or from, say, a remote access interface directly into a management interface, just anomalies in most cases. But the threat actors in this case still seem to be going after exposed services. So that was story number 2 in this series. Then on Wednesday, SonicWall and Cisco both disclosed new vulnerabilities under active exploit from other unnamed threat actors. So SonicWalls, they patched CVE 2025-4602, which was a privilege escalation vulnerability in the SMA 100 remote access appliance. They said that this was being under active exploitation in combination with their January vulnerability, CVE 2025-23006, to, in combination, give attackers unauthenticated remote code execution as root. So this one on its own, it's not like it exposes access, but if they already had that other vulnerability on the system, they could use this to elevate their privileges. And then Cisco, at around the same time, published a new security advisory for a unresolved, at least as of right now when we're recording this, zero-day vulnerability in their secure email gateways and secure email and web manager systems. And they even went as far as to publish a Talos threat intelligence report on some of the activity and some attribution for this activity too. That was super interesting and probably worth taking a bit of time to go through. They said they attribute the activity to UAT 9686, which is a China-aligned threat actor that has some overlap with other more well-known threat actors, but still based out of China in that case. And then in their report, they walk through a few of the tools that they're using and then provide some indicators of attack as well. Like they start by discussing Aqua Shell, which is a Python backdoor for Python-based web servers, listens passively for unauthenticated HTTP post requests with special data. And then when it identifies it, it grabs it, parses it, and then usually executes it on the system. So if the the target system is, well, in this case, one of their devices is running a Python web server. This can kind of hide under the radar and maybe get masked by normal web activity to the system. Then they talk through Aqua Purge, which is a evasion, or I guess a track covering tool. It removes lines containing specific keywords from log files on the device. Basically, it uses egrep, which is a inverse search, to filter out all content that doesn't match certain keywords. So they can hide the commands that they're running on the system and make it more difficult for someone that's even actively reviewing logs to see something suspicious going on the device. Then they talk about Aqua Tunnel, which is a compiled Golang Linux binary that acts as a backdoor based off of the open source reverse SSH backdoor that you can go get off of GitHub or any other open source repo. This one connects back to an attacker controlled server to enable remote access, even if it's behind like a NAT device that isn't exposing access to one of these ports. And then finally, they end with Chisel, which is a open source tunneling tool that supports TCP and UDP tunneling over HTTP-based connections, basically allowing them to proxy traffic through compromised edge devices to further mask their origin and to spread the breadth of their attack in some cases too. So 4 pretty interesting payloads as a part of this incident. And I have to say, like, hats off to Cisco for providing a ton of information on this, even when they don't, as of right now, have a patch available for it. In fact, if you are a Cisco customer for these devices and you see some of this threat actor activity they detail, they tell you to immediately open a support case to get in touch with them to help out with incident response and investigations.
People watching us on YouTube will also see, while they don't have the fix, they do have a mitigation recommendation page where they go into detail what you should do if you're an affected customer.
Yep, exactly. So already up to now, a big 2 weeks from all these incidents going on. And then comes us, where while investigating some suspicious activity affecting a customer device, we actually identified a new vulnerability, CVE 2025-14733, which is a critical pre-authentication remote code execution and the IKD process. Similar but different from the one that we discovered back in September of this year.
September. Yep. For the viewers, by the way, you might see me hovering on a pcert page. Remember, pcert.watchguard.com will redirect you to our product security incident response team page. Because Mark and I are recording this right before the release, although it will be out there by the time you hear this podcast, there's nothing to show, but go to the PCERT page after we talk about this to learn about it more.
Yep. Our advisory number for this, by the way, is 2025 00027, which is what you'll want to look for once it is live by the time you're listening to this.
Makes sense. I wonder how you came up with that number. I'm not sure I could figure it out.
Counting from 1 is very difficult, right? So we published a Fireware OS release for all supported models on late Thursday of last week. Like I said, similar exposure and impact to CVE 2025-9242, which was that other IKD issue, but it is separate. But this one, we actually have evidence that it was under attempted attack as a 0-day at the time we were publishing it too. And we're still working on attribution, working with like our partners and law enforcement and intelligence agencies to get information to have attribution. But interestingly, we have seen some overlap between this campaign and campaigns affecting other vendor systems too. Like, for example, that report we talked about at the start from Arctic Wolf with the Fortinet vulnerabilities. We actually had overlap in the threat actor IP addresses with some activity we saw on our HoneyNet, which is intentionally exposed to try and catch threat intelligence on this, specifically exploiting these vulnerabilities. So long story short, though, all of the IOAs we have will continue to update, will be in that advisory on pcert.watchguard.com. It's also the best place to go for mitigation recommendations and remediation recommendations. But if you do have a Firebox and you're listening to this right now and you have not updated it in the last, 72 hours since last Thursday, make sure you go update immediately as quickly as possible.
Or if you have a reason you can't, you need to follow that. There are mitigations we have to disable Ike in a way that won't expose this.
Yep.
I will also say for folks that are wondering about this, because this is in the wild, as we looked at all these attack campaigns, you can see this trend of various nation state campaigns going after edge devices. But as you saw in a number of those, one of the first things they do, I mean, they may have multiple payloads, but they want credentials and configs. So if, you know, we are obviously helping investigate these issues, but if you ever suspect a device is attacked, whether it's a WatchGuard or any other edge device, besides mitigating it, getting up to date, and just cleaning it, you need to change your passwords and secrets if you have any evidence that you've been breached. Because I think one of the reasons these edge actors go after credentials right away is with campaigns like this that seems to be very widespread across the industry, they're probably opportunistically, you know, scanning for various devices, trying to pop them or hijack them, but not necessarily researching the victims right away or logging in interactively right away. Their goal is to get these secrets so that even if you fix it, they hope to log in a legitimate way afterwards. So anyways, just
we've seen examples of that even this year too, like that the original SonicWall SMA vulnerability in January seems to have been used for credential harvesting, which they then used several months later this last summer to authenticate into fully remediated devices. They were on a safe firmware version, but they hadn't rotated the credentials, and so the attackers were able to just log right in then. So
unfortunately, we've even seen our competitors like Fortinet or Impulse Secure. They tend to get bad press even a year after fixing something. And obviously, a 0 day is the responsibility of the vendor, and we take that seriously and fix it. But the patching and the monitoring your secrets is something you should do, because in many cases, the vendor had a patch a year before, but then they'll see a year later a new spat and a new trend of breach activity that turns out just to be the credentials that were stolen long ago. So it's very important if you suspect you've been attacked to change those credentials.
Yeah. And then the other interesting trend around this is a lot of this activity just started within the last week or within the last 2 weeks in some cases. And it is like, in my opinion, clearly timed around the holidays where people are starting to back away from work and hopefully going and enjoying time with their families. Corey, you're about to hop on an airplane to New York, I think. Like, it makes sense why they'd pick now.
I was going to say, are we getting Cyclops Blink flashbacks? I believe we learned about that the last day of November, and it was over the holidays we fought that one.
Yep.
I was technically on a holiday break while I was joining calls every day anyways.
Yeah, that was the least fun Black Friday gift I've ever gotten.
Yeah.
But, either way, like the main takeaway from this is like even just past the vulnerabilities, there is a wider campaign targeting these edge devices. And so if you haven't already hardened them against attack, meaning MFA on any authentication you do expose, limiting exposure to as like small amount as possible. Yeah, definitely don't expose management to the internet, but be mindful of other services you expose. Like attackers are targeting these systems and they will continue trying to brute force their way in, find new vulnerabilities. So just be mindful. And
VPN admittedly is the tricky one. It is the one that, especially for mobile user cases, tends to be exposed. So that's up to us as much as you. But you know, while we always are going to keep all of our services secure and fix anything we find, I will do a shout out to, this is one of the reasons we had a prediction this year that VPN will start to collapse to ZTNA. You know, we have a new FireCloud private internet access. ZTNA is another way to really fill at least the private internet access part VPN use case of secure remote connectivity. But then the gateway exposed to the world is a cloud-based gateway that the vendor owns and maintains. That doesn't mean it won't one day have a vulnerability, right? I mean, it's any software can. But I personally find that if a vendor is taking the hosted responsibility for all of their customers, there's a lot of attention put to monitoring that. There's a lot of attention put to fixing vulnerabilities quickly. And the bigger thing is it's a web application that can be updated the day after as soon as the vendor knows. It's not something we have to help customers interactively update many devices out there. So that's not to say don't use VPN. It's a good thing, and we will always keep ours as secure as we can and react to these sorts of things. But ZTNA it's one of the reasons ZTNA adds additional security beyond just the zero trust policies and all the other benefits of it.
Yep. Yeah, well said. And I think it like a good parallel is like password managers. Like I put my trust in the password manager I use, but at the same time, I trust their ability to secure my vault way more than I trust my ability to do it myself if I were to try and do that. And like similarly to remote access, like there is some benefit from a like I guess economies of scale type of approach to security. So
you could think you're really good at securing stuff, but if it's a Microsoft or Amazon, they probably have a higher budget. And really, if you're a small to medium business or mid-market, almost any vendor that's creating the product probably has more resource to do that. So it's at least taking some of the responsibility off of you and putting it more on folks like us, but it does allow us to take action very, very quickly for you.
Yep. Well, moving on from that fun times. Let's go into the next story where this is the first of two from this organization, but last week, Koi Security published a blog post that I thought was pretty interesting, where they walked through the discovery of a malicious Firefox extension campaign that they're calling Ghost Poster. They discovered it when they found a extension called FreeVPN.
It feels like it's been a long time since we've had a marketing logo and marketing Ghost Poster vulnerability name. I think we might have two of them today.
That one looks very much AI
like
generated.
One of the Doom demons. I'm sure it's AI. I mean, what isn't nowadays?
Yeah. Anyways, so they discovered it when they were looking into Firefox extensions. They found this one where it was reading its own logo file, which isn't abnormal, but then doing something unusual with the raw bytes from the file. So basically, they start
by saying, by definition, every extension has to read its own logo, but it's usually doing that just to display it somewhere in the extension.
So in this case, it starts by loading up the logo and then reading through the raw bytes, looking for a specific marker. It's looking for 3 equal signs in a row, which signifies where a JavaScript payload is saved within the logo. So it's basically using steganography to hide script within an image icon within the app. The hidden JavaScript is a loader. It's a pretty small program designed to fetch a secondary payload from a remote server, calls home every 48 hours, and it only fetches the payload 10% of the time. So this is a way to try and evade detection by analysis. Imagine if like a researcher or someone is monitoring connections, they might not see anything for 2 straight days. And even then it might not do anything 90% of the time. So depending on how many installations you have, even 10% every 2 days can still be a huge number of infections, but while still making it difficult for any specific researcher to identify the threat.
This was not by accident that they're being so slow. This is definitely a really good research evasion technique.
Yep. So that loader goes and downloads a secondary payload from the command and control server, which is encoded or at least obfuscated using some custom obfuscation. Basically, it'll swap all of the lowercase letters for uppercase letters and vice versa, swap all the number 8s and number 9s with each other, and then base64 decode the result.
And can I say it's a Christmas gift that they chose 8-9 because I really don't want to be 6-7, 6-7.
I think most of our audience probably has no idea. They don't have, well, maybe they have kids. Never.
They all have kids. Everyone knows. It's on late night at this point. And by the way, I removed the Christmas gift by forcing that joke upon everyone. I apologize.
Perfect. So either way, though, like this would work because normally you would see a base64 encoded payload. If you're a researcher like you or I, like we'd go decode the payload to look at it. And if we didn't realize it was flipping characters around, it would come out as gibberish and probably
a nice simple one. I mean, I feel it's simple because there's so many layers of hiding here that they don't have to be too fancy. But at least if I were a researcher looking at this, I'm glad it's a nice, simple additional encoding that, you know, it really is base 64 with just a little bit more playful crap on top of it.
Yep. And then the final payload, it's not a crypto miner, it's not an info stealer. It's actually just a monetization toolkit for the web browser that includes a few different things. It's got a affiliate link hijacking script where if you go to a page and it's got like a affiliate Amazon link, it will replace it with one of the attacker controls.
What was that legitimate browser that it found out was stealing all the YouTube? Oh, it was Honey. The coupon.
What the heck was
it would find all the promo codes right before you bought something, but it turned out it was stealing affiliate links that you were using from YouTubers and replacing your own.
Yeah.
Or their own. Yeah.
So there's that. So this one did affiliate link hijacking, tracking injection. So it could keep track of you as a user as you go visit different websites as well too. Basically, you're being profiled for additional activity from them. It had security header stripping. So it would remove common headers for like clickjacking and cross-site scripting, like X-Frame options or content security policy to facilitate other attacks from some websites you might visit.
In other words, there's security things that your browser does to try to protect you from this stuff. It's effectively removing that.
Yep. If it encountered CAPTCHA, it had a CAPTCHA bypass mechanism built into it as well.
Well, at least that's good guy malware. They prevent you from having to do CAPTCHAs because they need to do it in order to act human.
Do you think this would have the unintended side effect of protecting you from like click fix phishing attacks?
Oh, wow. That would be, yeah, probably. we have seen malware actually patch other holes so that other threat actors can't pop the same device. So, hey, maybe.
Yeah, if you don't get the CAPTCHA, maybe you're good to go. And then finally, it supported iframe injection too. So basically, they could load whatever they wanted hidden from you in the background. But either way, this was an interesting walkthrough of a campaign that it affected an extension with quite a few downloads. But most importantly, like if I'm an untrained user and I just learned on MSNBC or Fox News, like how important it is to protect my internet browsing with a VPN or something, I'm going to go search free VPN and I'm probably going to stumble across something like this, free VPN forever, and install it without having any idea that behind the scenes it's doing all this crap.
I have a little other take on it too around privacy and marketing. The good news is on our podcast when we're recording, there's no people in marketing that will get offended when I talk about their practices, which can be a little shady as far as privacy. But the funny thing about this is that final iframe injection, this could be used purely for something really evil and root your computer and steal everything. But all this crap they're doing is stuff I've seen normal marketing cookies doing across the internet. Like they're paying attention to everywhere you go. They're trying to add affiliate links, which we've seen literally this is all stuff that marketers are doing to learn all about who you are, what you do, how they can sell to you, what your patterns are. And there's nothing like, I'm not blaming the marketing folks. It's their job to figure out their target audience. But people wonder why we sometimes equate privacy to security, or if you're not doing anything bad, why is it important you should be private? All this stuff would be perfect for a nation state to target you. Like they could know everything about you. They could bribe you. They could blackmail you. They could know stuff to socially engineer you. And we're talking about this because this seems to be one that's leaning a little bit more malicious use, but a lot of this stuff is happening on every site you go to on the internet as we speak. So that's just my weird soapbox, but I do think this is interesting because in their perspective, they might be actually selling real VPN software, but the way they're paying for it is this is all the marketing data they're monetized. They might this may be more pup grayware in their perspective, if they don't actually do anything uber malicious. I would argue that there's probably enough that they could get brought down for the CFAA, but still, this is just a hairbreadth away from all the tracking links we see in normal marketing stuff.
So my takeaway from that is people that work in marketing suck. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, since no one's listening right now, that's definitely not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying it is why privacy is important, regardless of if you're a good guy or a bad guy. And you should take your privacy important, and it does have security implications.
And also, as you'll see in the next story we're about to talk about, free doesn't always mean free. There is no such thing as a free lunch. And if you're not paying for a service that has bandwidth costs for the provider and development costs to create it, like they're getting their money some other way, most likely. So the second blog post was also from Koi Security. They had a pretty hot week last week, where they were walking through their investigation of browser extensions that had the capability to read and exfiltrate conversations from AI chat platforms. And
the way they started this, I don't know if you're going to skip it or not, but I thought it was interesting because I hear a lot of people I know I use AI every day for productivity stuff, but this particular way they use it is interesting to me. So I'll let you continue and we can decide if you want to add that story.
Basically, it started with them interacting with a chatbot, so Claude in this case, talking about some potentially like personal things, and then realizing that they're giving a lot of personal data to this chatbot. And I think, like you just said,
just in case people are like I have friends that they treat it like a therapist. And they share a lot of detail about themselves and ask questions about big life decisions. Now, these are all very responsible, smart people. So I don't think, I think they're going to make decisions off of their own choice. But it's a way of playing with, if you don't have a therapist or another person to bounce things off of, and especially if you have to share enough really personal detail about something in a candid way that would weigh on your decision, but you don't want the world to know. I'm surprised at how many people do this, where they talk about their mental health, they talk about their financial struggles, their work struggles, people, and they get the opinion of AI to choose what to do.
Yeah. I mean, it goes even beyond that too. Like I've listened to podcasts like the New York Times Daily a few months ago had a really kind of sad one about like a kid that had basically was just like fully ingrained with ChatGPT as their best friend, asking it for advice, and they ended up unfortunately killing themselves after ChatGPT basically did nothing to stop them,
because it was sycophantic. It created a response, like even though it might have said don't do that at first, I think it created a response that was kind of positive about it, because their early models were kind of sycophantic to whatever the user wanted.
But either way,
the researcher ended with, what if someone could see all of this stuff I was sharing?
Yeah.
And that comes into what happens.
Exactly. So they started a research project to just look and see like what browser extensions might be interacting with or reading some of the content. And they mentioned early on that they were expecting to find a couple of kind of low download count, like maybe obviously malicious ones, but they instead appeared to have stumbled across a jackpot, where they found one extension called Urban VPN Proxy with 6 million users, almost 60,000 reviews, and a very positive rating, and even a featured badge from Google, meaning it had gone through a manual review and met Google's high standards of experience and design. So a widely used extension in this case. It includes a feature that's designed to protect and warn users when they enter sensitive data into AI prompts. So if you are divulging too much, it's supposed to give you a little pop-up saying, hey, you might not want to share that with an AI model because it'll eventually become public. But behind the scenes, it's actually a bit more nefarious from the extension side, where it monitors all the big models like ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, Perplexity, Grok, Meta, all of them.
Nice.
For each site, it's got a injector script that injects what's called a executor script into the page, which wraps around native browser functions like fetch or XML HTTP request, basically how your browser goes and gets data behind the scenes, or how a web app uses your browser to go do that. And it captures all of the requests and responses for these targeted pages. So these chatbots. The chat contents, the timestamps, conversation IDs, other metadata, it's all packaged up, sent to a background worker, which is then compressed and sent to Urban VPN's servers. Now, this is supposed to be for that AI protection mode. Like you would understand, it needs to be able to read the contents of your conversations to be able to warn you not to put in sensitive stuff in there. So it's meant to be a privacy feature or a data protection feature. But turns out that data collection and the protection feature are actually just totally decoupled and operate independently, meaning the data is harvested regardless and sent off to Urban VPN servers no matter what, even if you have that protection feature disabled on it. They found similar code in other extensions like one-click VPN proxy, Urban Browser Guard, and Urban Ad Blocker. And then they did even more digging. So they found Urban VPNs operated by Urban Cybersecurity Incorporated, which is actually affiliated with a data broker called BI Science. So it turns out it's collecting all this data and then selling it off to advertisers, like all of your conversations and all of your metadata from AI interactions since I think it was July of this year is when this first started getting introduced into the add-on. There's like consent in here where technically the browser or the software vendor is supposed to ask for your consent for different types of data gathering. And obviously the privacy policy is supposed to tell you how it's used. But even on the Chrome Web Store, it does say the developer declares that your data is not being sold to third parties outside of the approved use cases, and it only lists web history and web content as the approved use cases, not AI conversations specifically. But the big piece of this is like a VPN service, or in this case, probably a proxy service, they're not cheap to run. Like bandwidth costs money for these vendors, software development costs money. So if you've got 6 million users there, they're making their money somehow. They're not doing this out of charity. And so I'm not surprised to find that it is harvesting all the data it possibly can to sell off to advertisers in this case. And it's kind of, I don't know, hopping up on my soapbox, a little bit gross seeing a privacy tool like this just totally invade people's privacy.
It's kind of what I was talking about in the other tool too. I mean, even though we might think that's more traditional malware or grayware, it feels similar. It's ISPs doing the same thing with their DNS records and selling them to bounty hunter services through third party, like maybe 2 arms lengths away. But that's the issue with this information. It's definitely powerful for marketers to understand target audiences so that they can cater communications. But it creates this, in my opinion, very dangerous privacy evading set of services that are always out to sell marketers who are data hungry.
There it is again,
like this.
Damn marketers.
It's I don't. There's just better ways to sell without having to say, "Oh, I know you have dogs and a daughter who just went through her menstrual cycle. Now let me use that in some way to sell something." Like that's too much information for a marketer to know that and it's not the marketers I worry about, because they just want to get a message across to the audience in a way that the audience can understand. But it's realizing that it creates this big data business that threat actors can use for really bad stuff. This is heavily secure and important data. We're hoping marketers are mostly good guys and are just trying to show us other things we like. And I think that's what I think. That's why marketers want it. But unfortunately, the drive to make this data so easy and accessible, and creating a market where it has value, where you sell it, it makes a threat actor's life very easy.
Yeah. It almost feels like we need some sort of like privacy regulation in the United States, like something that could generally protect people's privacy.
Yeah, generally. You could probably come up with an acronym for that kind of general
data
regulation, data protection. You use protection too.
Yeah, something. I don't know. It's not coming to me, but
GRDP maybe.
There we go.
General regulation for protecting data, GRDP.
We're joking, but like, a couple of years into GDPR being out there, from the vendor side, it is a bit of a pain in the butt to deal with in some cases. Like you and I are both very privacy conscious. And so we are fundamentally for GDPR. It does cause some issues though, for companies that try and operate with European customers or in Europe in general. But I think the net benefit outweighs those cons. And I would love to see something like that come to the entirety of the United States and not just like California and Illinois.
Marketers should have enough information about someone to know the right product to market to people, but there's certain information that needs to be considered private because it can be dangerous, and GDPR outlines what that type of information is. So I think it works. It can be a pain in the butt, as a vendor that is trying to do the right thing for GDPR. Sometimes the nuance of the details are a pain, but yes, we need something like that globally.
Yeah. But I'm not convinced that we're going to get anything here in the US anytime in the next decade. So Europe, please continue to save us as you have been.
The billionaires are still going to get more and more of the billions of everyone's dollars because they're the ones that have all this data.
And those damn marketers are just going to keep marketing to us.
We love you, marketers. We're just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Hey, speak for yourself. One just kicked me off the podcast temporarily.
I put you on the wrong side too. But I thought they weren't listening. Wait, they're listening to this, Mark? Oh no.
Oh man. Either way, Corey, I hope you enjoy your vacation. I will try and hold down the fort. And
Thank you for that.
We'll see. Hopefully I still have my hair in a nice shade of not gray when you come home.
Is that a comment on my beard?
Maybe a little. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. As always, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. If you have any questions on today's topics or suggestions for future episode topics, you can reach out to us on Blue Sky. I'm at It's Mark.me. Corey's at SecAdept. I briefly forgot to register that domain again this year, and it expired, and I had to pay a little bit more to get it back. But anyways, what was it? Oh, and Instagram, WatchGuard_technologies. We're still looking forward to those cooking recipes if you want to send them over there. But thanks again for listening. We'll be most likely off next week for Christmas, and you'll hear from us either soon or at the very start of the new year. So happy holidays.